Today we're going to talk about growing up in America.
I believe that the whole United States is mourning with me. And if the death of my son can mean something to the other unfortunate people all over the world, then for him to have died a hero would mean more to me than for him just to have died.
There were good times, there were bad times. However, I think the good times outnumbered the bad times, but there were times that were very trying, especially for me, growing up in a household that saw no discriminatory activities or pursued any discriminatory activities amongst not only my peers, but the elders, okay, and those surrounding people who were not in the family, such as folk of different races and colors. I lived down the street from a young man by the name of Emmett Till.
Emmett Till, 14, was kidnapped and killed allegedly for wolf whistling at the wife of accused Roy Bryant.
Now, I didn't know Emmett Till lived about 4 blocks from us until his death.
As a criminal defense attorney, when we look at crimes, we often try to put together a picture about what happened, and it takes a lot of hatred and a lot of rage to do the kind of violence that was done to Emmett Till. Being a black boy in the American South could be quite perilous.
Emmett Till was the first person that had an impact, not only in the country and the world, but in our neighborhood and in my life, because here was a young man, 14, 15 years old, who was brutally murdered because of his color.
The shock of his death was compounded by the brutality of his death. Emmett's mother couldn't actually conform to the conventions of the time, and she did something really quite remarkable. She made the really unorthodox choice of having a funeral with an open casket that was going to be very widely publicized, that was going to be attended by the national press. She wanted civil rights leaders and political leaders to see what they did to her child.
I know when his body was eventually found and he came back home in a coffin, your grandfather, my father, made sure that I went to see him in the casket at the funeral parlor, which was in our neighborhood. It was gruesome. It was very gruesome. But I remember standing in that line to see Emmett Till for at least a couple hours. The whole neighborhood came out to view him. I really got concerned for my own life at that time, because of the fact that I was thinking about going south for school to Oakwood. And what do they do to black kids from the north going south to school?
Bryant and his half-brother, J.W. Milam, were acquitted by this jury. And subsequently, even though they admitted taking the boy from the house, they were freed of kidnap charges.
The inability to hold anyone accountable for his murder and the comfort with which the men who killed him were able to talk about the violence was just adding to the injury.
That was a tragedy. That was a tragedy in my life.
I graduated from high school, and where I wanted to go to college, of course, the aeronautical school was out, okay? The other place I really wanted to go was Michigan State University. And at the time, I was into architectural education, okay? In high school, we had a program there that led students either into engineering or architecture, okay? And I was good at drawing buildings and screws, nuts, and bolts. And they were saying that I could become an architect. And that's where I wanted to go to school, Michigan State, okay, to become an architect. However, that was discouraged because Dad thought that was a party school, and there was no one he knew in Grand Rapids, Michigan, that I could stay with. He didn't want me to stay in the dorm. So the second place I really wanted to go was Arizona State. That was too far away. He felt that I really didn't need to go that far from home. So we started at Andrews University, the worst decision that we ever made in our lives, to go to Andrews. As far as the learning environment, it was not conducive for me, okay? Because growing up in my home, I never experienced the hate and the prejudiceness at an Adventist college in my life. Of course, I had never gone to an Adventist college. So I did not expect what I got there. And it threw me off of studying hard. I spent a lot of time lamenting the fact that I was there and not into my studies as I should have been. You know, I wasn't used to being called a name, you know, out of context of who I was. I was not used to going to the back door to get food. I was not used to thinking that the grade that I got was one that I cheated on, you know. So there were a lot of things at Andrews at the time. Now, some of the other black kids did well at Andrews. I didn't. Didn't like the place, you know. So the straw was one day, if you would go roller skating in the big gymnasium, you couldn't skate with a white girl. Okay? My friend Harold Kibble from the Kibble family, we said, we got to stop this mess, man. We got to stop this mess. So we got all the black kids together and we said, this is the deal that we're doing. Harold's father is the president of Lake Region Conference. Good. Kids said, yeah, we know that. My grandfather is the senior minister for the Illinois and Indiana Conference. Great, fantastic. What we're going to do is this. We have skating on Sunday afternoon. If perhaps you have a problem at the skating rink, they will take away your privileges until Thursday afternoon when the Judiciary Committee meets. Okay? So this is what we're going to do. We're all going to, when they say all skate, we want all the black students to grab a white girl or boy, you know, and we'll see what happens then. Everybody agreed because we said in the 3 days that we are sequestered in our room, we're going to we would have already called Elder Kibble and Elder Forde to come and be our advocates in the Judiciary Committee. So we called them and we set up a time, you know, and that Sunday came and they said all skate. When Harold Kibble and I looked around, it was only Harold Kibble and I.
Yeah, that's how it is sometimes. Everybody chickened out.
Everybody chickened out. It was just he and I, you know. So anyway, they blew the whistle kicked everybody off the floor, kicked all the black students out the rink, you know, and put Harold Kibble and I in sequestry in our rooms, okay? However, when Thursday morning came, who should be there except Elder Kibble and Elder Forde, you know? One young man who was in the committee came to me in my room and said, Winton, that was your grandfather? He said, yeah. He said he made them people look like fools. Now, this is a white boy talking to me. He said, and then his last statement was, he said, I cannot forget this. He said, if you do not release those young men to continue going to school at this Seventh-day Adventist university, this school will not be worth the paper it is written on, you know. Something like that, he said, you know. And he said, I was so impressed. I was so impressed. I said, fantastic, that's my grandpa. That's my grandpa, you know. So anyway, they came to me and said, Mr. Forde, we're so sorry. Mr. Kibble, we're so sorry. You can, you know, go back to school, blah. I said, Dad, I'm not going back. I'm not going back. I'm going to Oakwood next year. He said, good. And I came. Said, I am not going back to that school. However, when I got out of service, I went back for a refresher course because I wanted to continue my education. I didn't have my degree at the time. And I needed a refresher course in English, I think, and writing, because I had applied to the University of Wisconsin.
When I got ready to transfer from Andrews University to go to Oakwood, I had something like a posse with me because there was my guys, you know. There was Henry Flowers, there was Terrell Bond. Sandy didn't come with us. His mom was sick, had to stay home, so he had to stay home and work and help mom. Okay. Sandy Crank, yeah. But Terrell Bond, Henry Flowers, and I boarded a train going south to Oakwood. I think the second summer I was there, Mother wanted me to come home for Thanksgiving, okay? I had the car at the time, and she sent Nathan with Sandy. Sandy was coming down for a program. So we had two cars going back, but Sandy came down and brought Nathan with him. On the way home, Sandy and I were traveling together, okay? And we were pulled over in Evansville, Indiana, right across the Mississippi River from Kentucky to Evansville, okay, Indiana, by several police cars, okay? And when I say several, there was more than two. There was about 3 or 4 of them. They wondered why we were speeding. We weren't, because it was wintertime. There was snow on the ground. Of course, they didn't like the fact that there were 8 of us. There were 8 of us in the cars going back. There was 4 in my car, 4 in Sandy's car. They found out that we were all from Chicago, all from the north. And for some reason, they didn't like that. I don't know why. But anyway, they said we needed to pay a fine. It was $200. Well, we didn't have $200 in our pocket. So they said, well, either all of y'all gonna be in jail until we get the $200. I said, well, I need to call my mom. So I called Mother, told her what had happened. She said, well, you make sure you send Nathan back home. If they're going to send one of your cars back home, make sure Nathan is in the car with everybody else. The police, thank God for their mind at the time, said they were going to send one car back up north with everybody in it except Sandy and I. okay? And the reason why they were going to keep Sandy and I in jail because we had the biggest mouths, okay? We were talking back. We weren't supposed to talk back. So anyway, talked to Mother again, said, okay, Nathan is with the car that's going back. Henry's driving the car going back to Chicago. And Sandy and I are staying in jail. She said, I'm going to call your uncles. Those are her brothers. And she said, they're going down there, okay, and they're going to talk to the judge. She said, don't talk to them anymore. Say nothing, okay? Spend the night in jail, and in the morning, your uncles will be there to represent you. Good. Sandy and I stayed. We stayed in the jail. The jail was so dirty that they told us to sleep on the mattresses if we wanted to sleep. Well, mattresses were filthy, okay? There was roaches, and we figured there were bed bugs too. So Sandy and I, there was a newspaper in the jail. We spread the newspaper down and we sat back to back, and that's how we slept, okay, that night. In the morning, about 9 o'clock, they said, okay, boys, you got some representatives out here. Come on out. So when I got out, there were my three uncles. There was Uncle Jim, Uncle Reuben, and Uncle Sam. Got them. Okay. They talked to the judge, and the little bit I remember is that they told the judge they were from this county in Kentucky, and the judge wanted to know who they knew in this county in Kentucky. Well, they said a whole lot of people they knew in this county in Kentucky. The judge seemed to talk to them in a way that they did not speak to Sandy and I, okay? They were very cordial with my uncles. My uncles were very, should I say, stern? Not stern, they were very knowledgeable of what was going on, And I remember the judge saying, we want you to keep these boys out of the South, okay? He said, these boys don't need to be in the South. They need to be up north where they belong, because if we catch them here again, I'm gonna put them in jail for real good because they uppity. So our uncles got us, and they gave us some money and sent us on our way. Away we went to Chicago. And from then on, I thought my uncles were kings because they got us out of jail. They didn't have to pay any money for us. I don't know what they said where they did not have to pay a fine. Okay. And I asked Mom, I said, it seemed like they knew the judge. She said, no, they didn't know that judge. They just knew how to speak to him, that's all. So anyway, that was one. The other situation I remember quite well, singing with the male chorus that I had joined at Oakwood called the Vibratones. We were very good. We were a very good singing group. Matter of fact, we were sponsored by Oakwood for a summer to sing and recruit. And of course, the summer that we went singing was the summer, again, that I'll never forget. Our first trip was from Oakwood to New York City. We sang several places, but the one place that I remember is at the Apollo Theater. We sang at the Apollo Theater. It was just a very, very wonderful time in our lives, especially my life, because I saw the lights of Broadway. Wow, this is something else. However, the way I was brought up, I knew that I would never be involved in that type of lifestyle. However, singing with the Vibratones from Oakwood was enough to make one, juices really flow about what can happen. So we sang at the Apollo brought the house down. We were very close harmony group, something like Take Six. Matter of fact, we had a master copy that was made from our group or by our group, but the guy who was in charge of the master copy happened to put it in the back seat of his car, in the back window of his car, and it melted. So we could never get it duplicated. However, his name is Frank Williams. I know Frank Williams. Frank comes around every year for homecoming, always asking, "Man, you messed up our record." He said, "I know, don't remind me." But Frank's a good guy. We went on a television show called
Name that tune.
Name That Tune. There it is. Name That Tune. We wanted to get enough money to buy a van to travel to California, because Oakwood didn't give us enough money to go to California, but that's where the money was. The money was in California. We got on the show, we sang a couple songs, they asked us a couple questions, but all of the questions about naming the tune were secular tunes that we didn't have no bit about those secular tunes, what the names were. However, some millionaire donated a station wagon for us, okay? We all jumped in the station wagon. I had my car, okay, and we had the station wagon. So the plan was to get to the farm so I could pick up Dad's station wagon. Dad had a station wagon, okay? And that would give us 2 station wagons, and we would be able to go to California. Well, the plan worked. We got to the farm, one in Bloomingdale, begged Dad for his station wagon, which he gave us. And in one station wagon, everybody had their clothes, their suitcases, you know, and 7 guys. And the other station we had 7 guys and clothes and station wagon. I mean, we looked like paupers on the road, you know. But we made it to California. We raised a lot of money. And when we say a lot of money, maybe $100,000 we thought was a lot of money at that time, you know.
That's a lot of money.
I was a sophomore. I was a junior in college at the time.
Okay.
At Oakwood.
At Oakwood.
Yeah. It was my first year at Oakwood. That was my junior year. Yeah. My first year at Oakwood. The manager and the director was from New York, Rochester, New York. Matter of fact, he just passed away last year. His name was Herb Shorter. If any of my other friends are listening to this, they'll remember that name, because he was quite a musician, had quite an ear. Before he even came, he was an older fellow. Before he came to Oakwood, he garnered a lot of accolades for his music prowess in the state of New York. He was almost like a professional musician. Yeah. But he was a student when he was at Oakwood. I think it was our senior year. It was my 4th year. We were asked to sing at the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham. And they said, we'll be singing for Martin Luther King. What's going to happen is that there's a concert before Martin speaks, okay? So you're going to be part of the concert. Now, part of the concert had some very wonderful singers. The Blind Boys of Alabama, okay, were part of the concert. They were very young at the time. The Alabama Gospel Singers. And there were several other people. Since we were going down there that way, we made an appointment in Jackson, Mississippi to sing. We were supposed to sing at 6 o'clock in Birmingham and about 9 o'clock in Jackson, Mississippi, which was a couple hours away. We got on the program and we sang our songs and took off. In the morning, since we didn't have cell phones and things, in the morning we found out that the 16th Street Baptist Church was bombed and 4 little girls were killed. And that was devastating to hear. We all fell down on our knees and thanked the Lord that we were at the concert and not in the church when that happened. The impact all this is having on me is the realization that being black in America is a tenuous situation. You know, however, being scared, I never was scared. I was very cautious. I never was scared of losing my life. I think at that time, I was totally indoctrinated to make sure that prayer was at the forefront of my life, you know, and that God would take care of me wherever I am. And I think the arrogance that Sandy and Henry and Terrell and I had at that time was that, you know, that we could go anywhere and God would be with us. But we were a force to reckon with, the 4 of us, not in a physical way, but in probably a Christian arrogant way, you know. We just did not fear for our lives because we felt that our lives were in Jesus's hands. Okay, another situation that happened with the vibratones is the fact that we were on our way headed to Montgomery, Alabama. We were in the station wagon and a car. The station wagon was my station wagon, or should I say my dad's station wagon, which had a Michigan tag, and the car had a New York state tag belonging to our director. And of course, along comes the state police. They stop us. They're wondering why we're traveling so fast on the road. Well, we apologized to them and said that we were headed to a concert and we didn't want to be late for the concert. They said, well, we don't think you going to any concert, get out the car. So we all got out the car. They start questioning us why all of us were together. They wanted to know if we were going to start some riot, you know, somewhere. We said no. They felt that we as blacks, or should I say in their vernacular, niggas, shouldn't be together. So many of them shouldn't be together. Well, here again, the director took over, he's from New York, and kind of explained to them what we were doing. Well, one thing I found out is that ignorant folk do not like educated folk to talk to them because they can't understand what they're saying. And the young man from New York had a nice vocabulary, and he just made them look silly and foolish, you know, with his verbiage. So they got upset with us, and they told us to lay our heads down on the yellow line on the road, you know. It was not a 4-lane highway. This was a 2-lane highway that we were on. So we had to get down in our clean clothes, okay, lay on the road as they came by with their guns and popped them. There were no bullets in the gun, but that was the first time that I think I was scared for my life, you know, by laying on the ground and these guys popping their pistols above our heads, you know. We had one young man in the group. He was our boy soprano. He was 14 years old. He was a friend of our director. And this young man was so scared, he decides to jump off the line and run toward the shoulder, which was wooded. Well, it just so happened that a young man from Mobile, Alabama, jumped up and caught him before he could get to the woods and brought him back and said, it'll be all right. Just lay down. It'll be all right. And I remember him saying that to him. It'll be all right. When the young man laid down, there was this tall policeman who was holding a rifle. Now, I don't know if the rifle was loaded or not, but he said, I'm sure glad you brought him back, because if he'd have gone into those woods, I would have split him in two. You know, I believed him because these guys were not nice. However, they did this going back and forth, shooting this empty pistol pop in our ears, you know. All of a sudden, one of the guys said, hey! He had ransacked my station wagon. He said, they got Bibles in here. As soon as that guy said they had Bibles in there, in the station wagon, all of these guys jumped back in their cars and they disappeared. They just disappeared. We didn't hear nor see the cars leave. One, because our heads were down, okay? We just heard what they said. They have Bibles back here. When we decided to look up, the cars were gone. There was no policeman. We prayed and we felt that those were devils that had appeared to us to stop us from where we were going. Well, we made it to Montgomery. We were late, but we made it and we sang. And every once in a while, when I see some of the guys who are still alive, they always say, remember that night on the road? Yeah, we remember. We still remember. And for me and a couple other guys feel that they were devils, they were imps who had stopped us, not the state police. And if they were the state police, they were acting as imps, you know. But it was over. It seemed like it took a long time, but it wasn't that long. Listening to that gun pop off in your ear next to your head was frightening, you know, just frightening. But that was a situation that I'll never, never, never forget.